My name's Emily Arnold Fernandez. I'm the managing editor of Forced Migration Review, and I want to give a warm welcome to all of you here in our audience and to thank you for your patience, as I know we're starting a couple minutes late. If you're just coming into the room now, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat briefly, and you can also use the chat to post questions for the panelists at any time, and then we will select a summary of questions for the panelists during our question and answer session, which will be about the last half to third of the event. To open, I'd first and foremost like to give a special thanks to the people and organizations without whom this issue would not have happened. So our expert advisors, Marie Godin and Daria Oskol, both here today, and also very important are the sponsors of this issue, the Robert Bosch Foundation, UNHCR, and the International Labor Organization. Thanks also to all of our reviewers and mentors and authors, some of whom are here with us today. Before we dive into digital disruption and displacement, I have some announcements to share. You have probably noticed that Forced Migration Review has a brand new look, including a new logo, new designs for all of our work that align with the new brand of the Refugee Studies Center here at University of Oxford, in which Forced Migration Review sits. We also have a new website that is designed for accessibility and inclusion. And the website is in beta, which means that we'll be continuing to make small changes to improve it over the next few months. And we would love to hear your feedback. If you find a problem or something that isn't working right, please let us know. And I'll put our email in the chat in just a moment. And please generally let us know what you think of it. We also have a new magazine design. So our print magazine and our magazine online have a new design. You can see it here, Digital Disruption and Displacement. And this design also aims to improve accessibility and inclusion. Again, this is in a beta version, so we'll be making additional changes over the next few months. And in light of that, we'd love to hear what you think and anything you think we can do to make it easier to read and understand. So we're hoping to include as wide an audience as possible. And finally, our new issue, Forced Migration Review 73, Digital Disruption and Displacement. It has come out this week. And before we turn to remarks on this exciting new issue, just a couple of other pieces of news. In October, Forced Migration Review will launch FMR 74, Financing Displacement Response. This will look at the impacts and implications of various ways that displacement response is financed, is funded. So from traditional donor state aid to new investment tools and refugee-led financing. And also later this month, managing editor Alice Phillip will return from maternity leave. So we're really excited to have her back. She and I will have a period of overlap, so you'll still see me around for a while, but we're very excited to welcome Alice back as managing editor. As we turn to FMR 73, Digital Disruption and Displacement, I am very pleased to introduce Tena Martins of UNHCR's Innovation and Digital Services, and Zulum Avila of the International Labor Organization. They will offer us a few opening remarks. Taina?
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. My name is Taina, and I'm part of UNHCR's Innovation Service. And it's a great pleasure to join all of you to talk about our work on digital inclusion. Well, digital technology is integral to the lives of forcibly displaced people and the humanitarian systems they interact with. It has the potential to facilitate access to lifelong learning, service, inclusion in the digital economy, leisure, and opportunities for durable solutions. More than ever before, forcibly displaced communities are articulating with urgency the importance of connectivity as a basic, fundamental need and a right. In 2022, UNHCR has endorsed its first ever digital transformation strategy, which highlights safe and transformative ways that digital technology can impact the lives of refugees and the work of UNHCR. It provides a framework for how UNHCR will approach the opportunities and risks of technology, such as online hate speech, disinformation, and scams, now and in the future. An equal priority is further strengthening UNHCR's capacity to use digital technology in line with emerging ethical and protection standards, alongside with engaging with governments and the private sector to promote their realization of core protection principles. Although this sometimes involves stepping into areas that are relatively unexplored by humanitarian actors, one thing is clear: digital inclusion is incredibly multidimensional. And in the absence of a holistic response to the digital inclusion challenge, such as lack of skills, access to reliable infrastructure, restricted access to financial service, and exposure to digital risk, many forcibly displaced are still left behind. We also know that catalyzing an enabling environment is a collective effort, and only with a wide and diverse network of stakeholders like the one we have today, with unique perspectives, we will be able to establish a course toward a responsible digital inclusion. UNHCR has been working with partners to break down these barriers and empower communities to safely leverage digital technology in a way that enhances their well-being and self-reliance. For example, through a project funded by Prospects, we have been working with ILO, that Zulan is representing today, and other stakeholders to advance opportunities available to refugees in the digital economy, balancing safe and equal access with emerging risks. And connectivity for refugees, a multi-stakeholder initiative looking to advance that connectivity of over 20 million forcibly displaced people and the communities that host them by 2030. While our organization may not always align with every perspective presented in this issue of forced migration review, we firmly believe in the importance of supporting a space where these ideas can be explored and debated. It's through discussion and critical thinking that we can collaborate to ensure access to digital technology develops equally, and both the benefits and risks in its use are considered carefully. Thank you for joining today. We are excited to see how this issue will contribute to the debate and action on our responsible and human-centered digital inclusion of forcibly displaced people. Thank you, and back to you, Emily.
And Zulum, I'll turn over to you.
Thank you. I hope my voice is clear. And first of all, thank you for the invitation. My name is Zulum Avila. I am a specialist on employment strategies in the digital economy, and I am also collaborating in the implementation of an opportunity fund project funded by the government of the Netherlands, working on the promotion, the inclusion, and the protection of refugees and their host communities in the gig economy, so very much related with our issue today, and which we are implementing in partnership with UNHCR and our colleagues present today. So I will be very brief, and first of all, I would like to echo UNHCR colleagues in expressing ILO's appreciation to the Forced Migration Review for dedicating this most recent issue to digital disruption and displacement. Our appreciation also goes to the critical mass of researchers and practitioners that flesh out this new issue. Some of them are our implementing partners in some of the countries where we have operations. And indeed, Emily, congratulations to you and the team for your new look. And let me start just by sharing something that is probably very familiar to you. Migration and forced displacement are on the rise. In 2023, 1 in 70 people in the planet were forcibly displaced. And in parallel, businesses and occupations are becoming increasingly digitized, and emerging digital technologies are offering a potential to boost a structural change and job creation for many countries. Of course, providing that these strategies are backed by the necessary policy and regulatory frameworks and sometimes incentives to the multiple actors working in the digital economy. But let's say that while digitalization can boost the productivity of businesses and open new job pathways for migrants and refugees, it also poses challenges in terms of adequate access to labor and social protection. And in that terms, the ILO welcomes new perspectives and research that inform policy interventions and new approaches to promote an inclusive and productive digital transformation for decent work. Indeed, a lot of the voices can resonate with ILO's mandate. And the contributions to this new edition for Forced Displacement Migration Review have mapped and developed on the opportunities and challenges that digitalization and the digital economy bring about for the integration of migrants and refugees. And they have been mapping critical areas that indeed resonates with ILO mandates, and the work it's also, and the work that we are conducting at local level. And this ranges from facilitating access to digital literacy, upskilling, reskilling, promoting ethical practices in the use of algorithms in artificial intelligence, understanding new forms of work organization that are rapidly expanding across the world, such as platforms, labor platforms, freelancing, and gig work. Also, I want to highlight that some of these articles that are featured in this issue also advocate for the effective realization of fundamental principles at work, like freedom of association and the effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining, so essential for the ILO. So I'm looking forward to learning more about the authors participating in this session today, and I would like to invite you all to follow the preparatory work of the ILO towards considering setting a new international labor standard to support decent work in the platform economy. This is going to happen in the International Labor Conference next year in June, so stay tuned. And thank you so much again for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the ILO today. Over to you, Emily.
Thank you, Sulum. And my apologies, I have one other minor item of business. Well, not minor, important item of business. If you need interpretation today, please select your language using the world or globe icon on the bottom of the screen. My apologies for not mentioning that earlier. We do want everyone to be able to understand and participate in the language in which they're most comfortable. Thanks very much. Now, I am very, very pleased to give the floor to one of our expert advisors for this issue, Dr. Marie Godin.
Thank you, Emily. So today's event is entitled Digital Inclusion, How Digital Technologies Are Transforming Refugees' Economic, Social, and Cultural Inclusion. So we will hear three concrete initiatives put in place by different actors in the field to address some of the needs that refugees face on a daily basis. So we will get to understand better what are the opportunities, but also some of the challenges and risks induced by the use of new technologies for forcibly displaced people in different sectors. So we'll hear from three authors in this issue. First, we will hear from Giselle Gonzales. So Giselle is the founder and CEO of Equal Reach. She has many years of experience working with displaced communities in different contexts of protected displacement. Over the last few years, she has been researching the opportunities of digital livelihood for refugees. And based on this expertise, she created a fair freelancing marketplace connecting vetted teams of displaced talent with dignified digital work. She is now an award-winning social entrepreneur, and she will tell us more about the platform she created, matching refugees' expertise and talent with business actors via impact sourcing. We will then hear from Saqib Sheikh. He is the project director of the Rohingya project, a grassroots initiative dedicated to preserving and promoting Rohingya identity through decentralized ID. This platform relies on the use of blockchain technology to enable access to learning, skill building, and empowerment opportunities. He is also a doctoral researcher at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore, and his thesis is looking at assimilation and exclusion of the stateless Rohingya diaspora in both Pakistan and Malaysia. And then we'll hear from Amir Shiva. He's the Global Project Manager for Digital Transformation of Information, Counseling and Legal Assistance at the Norwegian Refugee Council. He will tell us more about the digital legal aid platform called Kobli, enabling displaced people to access timely and accurate legal information online. So let's start straight away with the first question to our speakers, which is, could you please tell us more about your initiative and how you have used digital technologies to address some of the gaps you identified in your field with the hope of improving the lives of refugees? And I will ask Giselle to start first.
Thank you, Marie, and thank you for having me. So Equal Reach is a fair trade version of a freelancing marketplace connecting skilled teams of refugee talent with dignified work. And what this means essentially is we uphold a fair sourcing framework to prevent exploitation while also making it easy for companies to find and send work with contracts and payments taking care of some of the biggest barriers. The reason I decided to build Equal Reach is spent years look at this widening gap between an increasing number of businesses around the world that are looking to outsource and are digitizing their businesses. I think so many in this room are already familiar of incredible untapped skills that exist in forcibly displaced contexts, and yet these skills are they face so many barriers, whether it's access to platforms, payment solutions, accounts, to even access to the digital economy, a lack of bargaining power. This is well researched, and if any of these are new, just read the FMR because holistically, so much of this is covered. What I aim to do is really create a new way for the private sector to engage, not just in the CSR initiative.
Sorry, Giselle, can we just
Giselle.
stop you for a minute? Yeah,
Yes.
we're having a bit of trouble hearing you.
Yes, I think your
It's
connection.
breaking up.
So
Go ahead.
maybe, Giselle, can you just check your connection? And I think we are going to move on to Saqib, I think. And then hopefully you can just come back and then summarize your answer to that first question.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity, and FMR, especially for giving the platform. My name is Saqib Sheikh, and I'm also representing my colleague, Mohammed Noor, who is my co-author in the article. He's also a Rohingya, and we together co-founded Rohingya Project. And as Marie mentioned, our focus is using technology to find ways to essentially address issues of statelessness and identity in the Rohingya diaspora. And as our article went into our approach, one of the initiatives that we're doing is creating a Rohingya historical archive. And the particular problem or the obstacle that we're trying to target is, as most of you are aware, the Rohingya are victims of genocide. That has, of course, a horrible humanitarian effect and disaster, but there's also a cultural aspect of erasure for many Rohingya, especially those living in the diaspora. And what we felt was very important is to find a way to preserve the ancestral heritage of the Rohingya, be it through documents and other various forms of identity-related material that a lot of those in diaspora possess, but are at risk of being lost or destroyed. And we set about with our pilot to create a system where much of this archival material could be stored using a system called Blockweave. It is a sort of blockchain-based system that allows for mass storage at a very sort of affordable price, because those who are familiar with blockchain will realize that much of the costs come from storage and replication on the chain itself. There's more I can go into, but essentially what we're trying to target is within a few generations, many of the Rohingya who have access to this material, once it's lost, for the next of kin, that link to their land and to their ancestry is gone, and it's a form of cultural erasure that we're trying to address through our particular initiatives. So that's a very brief summary, and then hopefully I can go more into it, and much of it is also mentioned in the article as well.
So thank you so much, Saqib. Amir?
Thanks, Marie. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity. Very briefly, what we do at NRC, we have a specialty on providing legal aid to displaced population, where we understand and study and employ local lawyers that would concentrate their focus and expertise on the laws associated with the displaced population in the host community. What we have observed is that there is a very high demand for this niche of law, and there are not that many legal experts. So hoping that we can use digital transformation to broaden our reach, make our platform or our information more accessible. So our project is about building simple tools that allows our legal aid workers to digitalize the information and this knowledge and lower the barrier to access free legal information at any time and any location that they have access to internet, basically. We're also using several self-help tools that we hope that these tools can be used online and reduce the dependency of the displaced population on aid workers. So it provides them with more autonomy. And finally, we hope that we can collect more, we can connect more easily with the target population in areas that are hard to reach, or there is no physical presence from us, or areas where people receive information, for example, on social media and other forums where misinformation and rumors may spread, and we have an authenticated and reliable source of information that we can be present in. So that's about how we're using digitalization to provide services to displaced population.
Thanks so much, Amir. So I'm just going to try to go back to Giselle and then try to give it another go. So perhaps you can also explain a little bit more about what Equal Reach is doing. Giselle?
Sure. And can you hear me all right now?
I think we can hear you, but if not, then I will have to stop.
Okay, great. I'll go off video if not. So Equal Reach is a fair trade version of a freelancing marketplace connecting refugee talent in a team project-based environment around the world with dignified digital work. So I built Equal Reach because of the gaps that are so well documented by so many of the researchers here in this room, whether it is access to platform and payment solutions, banking access, or if someone does have access, then being able to be found and seen and contract with businesses around the world. And then if they can contract with businesses, having the bargaining power to fairly engage in the digital economy. There's so many gaps in this space and no systems that were truly built to protect the most vulnerable in the digital economy. And so Equal Reach is coming in as a solution to provide value for businesses with incredibly talented freelancers around the world that specialize in topics from website development to marketing to any type of digital work that you can outsource in a project basis. But what we're really doing is making sure we connect both that supply and demand with not just theoretical support, but real implementation, connecting with contracts and payments in a team-based environment to make it easy for people to actually generate livelihood opportunities so that when they get out of a digital upskilling course or 5, they don't just have a stack of certifications that don't go to use. They're actually getting market linkages. And that's where Equal Reach sits, is that intersection between connecting equipped, skilled teams of refugee talent with the opportunities from businesses that are looking for that talent.
Okay, thank you so much. That was super clear. We could hear you well. So let's move to the second question. So while the aim of this project is to improve the lives of refugees, so as we heard in the field of livelihood, identity preservation and legal aid, digital technologies can also exclude certain groups of refugees. So there are issues concerning refugees' lack of connectivity or lack of representation. So could you share with us some of the main obstacles you have encountered in your project, considering factors such as limited access to connectivity, low levels of digital literacy, or other type of risk associated with the use of these digital tools? And perhaps based on this assessment, what are the strategies that you have found to overcome these challenges? And maybe we can start with you, Giselle, again.
Sure. So I'll start on what I see is there are so many well-documented, well-funded programs that exist around the world to support FDPs or forcibly displaced people. I think the challenge that I see of that is that last mile skills development, where there's so much investment around equipping people for the digital economy and starting to make sure access is provided. And so I won't speak on the digital technical access, but rather once someone does have access, how do we ensure that they're equipped to actually be generating income online and doing this in a sustainable way? I'm ex-Amazon, and so I come from a framework that's all about working backwards. And I think when we are getting to the point of livelihood creation and connecting with sustainable work, we need to be starting from what are the real business needs in the market. So in this scenario, what types of work is currently available with in-demand skills, and what is required for someone to not just have those skills, but then to land those jobs, whether they be contract basis as a freelancer or full-time jobs, and work backwards from there in the training programs that are being developed and employed. So I often see that there are some really small gaps that are fairly easy to address, whether it's developing project management, soft skill, team building skills, whether it's just equipping teams or individuals on engaging with clients in a virtual setting, project management around time tracking. It really is a matter of how are we just helping support that last mile of ensuring people are prepared to not only win one-off projects, but then be able to create sustainable work for them and their communities within the digital economy.
Thank you, Giselle. So, Saqib?
Yeah. So regarding these type of barriers, the nature of how we did our preservation archival work was to engage with field officers from the Rohingya community in different diasporic locations, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia. But one obviously big location was in Bangladesh in the camps, given that we have people who are seeking first asylum, but also taking with them their last remnants of their homeland in Arakan. And we tried to engage through our field officers to do data collection. One of the big barriers that we faced was, especially in the last couple of years, internet access in the camps has been severely cut. It's been, even cell phone penetration is also quite low. So for many of the cases where we have field officers who find and are able to contact community members who have certain valuable bits of data, certain important documents, old land deeds, old family archives, photographs, things that they would want to have preserved, being able to get that scanned and then sent proved to be a bit of an obstacle even now. And then, of course, the conditions of the camps themselves have deteriorated as well. So we have to find more sort of creative and safety first sort of approaches to deal with this particular issue. That's a more immediate issue. And then there are others when it comes to the type of phone and the type of scanner and the quality of the scanner they're able to access to in the interim period in a lot of these locations.
Thank you, Saqib. And last but not least, Amir?
Yep. So for years, NRC ICLA programs, information counseling and legal assistance, have been reaching out to the community and providing in-person services. So for example, when we talk about provision of legal information, We go to communities, community centers, churches, mosques, and provide, try to lift people's legal knowledge. So talk about the importance of birth registration and so on. And we reported on the numbers of people that we have reached, and that's how our projects have been shaped. Now we're introducing this digital transformation, which in one perspective can reach a lot more people in less expensive ways. However, we also acknowledge that the community and the target population that you're reaching through digital modalities and the people that you're reaching out through in-person outreach are quite different, or could be quite different. In fact, there is an acknowledgement that probably the most vulnerable population will not have the connectivity that requires to use the digital tools that we're introducing. So how we battle this is that we want to make sure that there is a alignment between the different modalities that we adopt to reach out to the communities. So we introduce this complementarity perspective, and we have elements and factors to discuss in each context in how you have to make sure that this is balanced between the two modalities. So making sure that we don't take the easy way out and putting information on digital and leaving people behind that do not have access to the internet. One of the ideas is that we hope that even if this digital modality reduces the burden on our staff 20 to 30%, because now some people that have access to the internet can use the internet and receive the same information, then that additional information can be put into more complex issues and more vulnerable population. So a better targeting that complements our digital modality, where digital would not be a good solution, is something that we try to work on. Finally, I do want to also say that there is an acknowledgement that sometimes the tech literacy is low among the population because there hasn't been that many digital solutions that they would see the added value for. So, in my example, when I didn't, realize the values of installing an app on my phone from my bank, I didn't really put the effort of learning it or going through it. And it's similarly, we hope that once we have some digital solutions that can show the value, that we also help with digital literacy and pushing people to learn a bit more. Yes, and connectivity issues is there, and that's a bit beyond the scope of what we can do, but we also have a forecast of the future and how things are moving, so we could be prepared in different contexts. That's it for me.
Thank you so much. So I was just going to say, because I didn't mention it at the beginning, that if you do have questions, please type them in the chat, and so we'll have Emily from Forced Migration with you, who will be reading them and choosing some of them for the Q&A. And if we don't have the time to answer all of them, we will make sure to transfer those questions to one of the speakers. So just to conclude and to give you some time to ask questions, in each of these initiatives that you described, it seems that the ultimate goal is for refugees and forcibly displaced people to be treated with dignity, respect, equality, and fairness. So what do you think is missing in the sector to make these technologies truly transformative for refugees? And you can answer very briefly, also based on your own initiative and expertise, of course. And Giselle, we will start with you.
Great. I think for me, the biggest focus of what we're doing to try to make sure we're not replicating what already exists while also filling a true gap is capacity building at an organizational level. We function like a B2B organization where businesses come to us with projects and we identify the best fitting organizations that within their group of talent that they support, that they're able to be the best to secure and also succeed on that project. So capacity building and putting people in a team-based environment, we've just found that as far as actually securing work and really being able to thrive and learn with paid paid work as maybe new members of a team come into a project that they've never, worked with a client for. That team-based work is really changing the way that people are able to operate and actually access work. So for us, a lot of the capacity building we do for what we call delivery partners, these could be RLOs, NGOs, or refugee majority supporting businesses, is we make sure that they are able to have consistent development and documentation standards, that they are equipped with proposal building, pricing, project negotiation, that they have that collective bargaining power that you can get in a team-based environment that is often so difficult to actually tap into in the current digital economy, where, let's say, if you're a freelancer on an existing freelancing marketplace that focuses on the individual, you alone might be competing with 16 million other freelancers for a project, versus in a team project-based environment. You might not have all of the skills required for a project that comes along, but you're able to work with a technical expert on your team or others who have the skills that you can fill in their skill gaps, and you can also learn from them while you're getting paid.
Thank you, Giselle. Saqib?
Yes, so it's an interesting question because when we're dealing with the Rohingya, you're not necessarily just dealing with asylum seekers or refugees, but you're also dealing with an aspect of them being undocumented. And on top of that, essentially stateless, even though that term can be considered contentious. And sort of at the heart of the Rohingya struggle is identity. And even within this magazine, there was, I think, aside from our piece, even another piece dealing with that aspect. So related to identity, there's a sort of Western humanitarian perspective that pays a lot of emphasis on privacy concerns and data protection, with some legitimate backing behind that, of course. But there is an aspect to the Rohingya struggle which is related to how Rohingyas can have control of their own data or control of their own information, and why that's so integral to the Rohingya situation. And often cases we find that when it comes to issues of identity management or issues related to the particular data that personal or collective that the Rohingya give to certain institutions, it tends to not have that communal voice or even some level of community oversight before it's managed by particular institutions. And this can lead to certain cases where those institutions are essentially in control or in a position of authority over the Rohingya. And what we feel would be a more mitigating factors to allow the Rohingya some degree of control and oversight of their own data and some degree of communal input when certain, especially ID management systems and aspects of identity management are essentially put into this larger discussion. So that's something that our project has been very sensitive about, and one thing we feel is very key to the preservation and moving forward of rights for the Rohingya in their stateless condition.
Thank you, Saqib. And Amir?
Thanks. So I wanted to mention two challenges. We have now gone live in 5 different country operations, and the biggest challenge with this project for us so far hasn't been the software or technology, but it has been more about changing the mindset within the organization, whether it is about letting go of this intellectual property that they have held for years about the legal information at each level within the field office and making that freely available on the internet, or it's about developing skills and communicating information online through online channels. The challenge remains within the organization a lot of times to have this change of mindset and a new way of doing things. So we have started employing new skill set that we have never thought of before, people who have expertise in online communication, online marketing. We have been starting to update, Wikipedia channels and YouTube channels with the aim of making information freely available and accessible to individuals, which is quite contrary to how we are used to operate, where we want people to come to our channels and start counting them. And I think that's the biggest achievement of this project in this 5-country office. Hasn't been the software necessarily, but digitalizing the information and making it available to others. I think that's the biggest challenge and biggest achievement. The second thing that I would like to mention as a challenge is using the traditional indicators in the humanitarian sector to measure impact of projects like ours, where it is much more difficult to measure the impact of information. Like has it led to securing of documentation, as information doesn't work that way necessarily, or the number of individuals that needs to be identified for donor reporting when we want to be anonymous on our platform and make our information accessible without having people register through our platform. So those are examples of how digital or innovative projects have challenges fitting into traditional humanitarian operations and reporting and monitoring and measuring impacts, basically. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm just looking at the chat, and there are quite a lot of questions. And looking at the time, I'm just going to start with some of the questions. So,
Marie, are you seeing? Sorry, Marie, are you seeing the questions that I'm sending to you in the chat?
I
Okay,
am.
great.
So there are quite a few of them. So I think I will just start straight away because I can see that time is running out. So first, perhaps a question to Saqib. So what are some of the political risks that arise in your work? So you mentioned limited internet speed. So that's one for you. And I think it's someone also referring to, I'm just going up. So the question is the internet severely low to limit refugee access digital service, and are internet providers restricted to operate in camps? So perhaps you can give a little bit more information about the context in which Rohingya refugees live in camps, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so on that question about internet access, internet providers, so many of the those who reside in the camps they were made to suffer essentially because of a decision by the authorities to essentially black out certain areas of the camp from internet access. So many of them go to certain outskirts or certain zones where internet access is still available from the internet providers that they already have. Others find other avenues to essentially move out from the camp zone to places where they have familiarity with locals, and they're able to access internet in spades. Again, sometimes the conditions ease and sometimes they get stricter depending on the months, and there isn't a consistent policy on it, but it's been more difficult in general since I would say COVID, where these restrictions started becoming more pronounced. That's on the first issue. Then in terms of the political risk, so we're sort of a small grassroots outfit. We're somewhat of a tech-based social enterprise. And one of the things we try and do is to be non-aligned to any particular government, simply because the sort of solidarity towards the Rohingya tend to be subject to certain political pressures. So in Malaysia, for example, we saw that there was quite a reversal on public sentiment towards the Rohingya during COVID. It became much more antagonistic, and the government sort of was put under pressure because of that. And aligning too much with one particular government in terms of implementing refugee management holds that particular risk. So we prefer to operate more in the private sector and with international organizations, as opposed to working hand in hand with governments towards implementing these simply based on that risk that their policy may drastically change depending on the environment.
Thank you. So I have a question for Amir. So how does the Norwegian Refugee Council navigate policies that impact its delivery of legal aid? For example, camp policies in Kakuma that may affect the Norwegian Refugee Council's delivery of legal aid there. And there is a follow-up question, which is, for example, if camp authorities have policies of confiscating refugees' devices, how do you navigate this?
Yeah, I mean, so we do have a whole process of identifying risks and mitigation measures and working with the local authorities and deciding and negotiating access, whether it is through digital or non-digital platforms. Within camps, for example, we have navigated ideas and implemented it in a couple of, in Colombia, actually, for the Latin America region, several countries, and also in Ukraine, where we try to set up this digital kiosks within camps or places that are of high population for refugees, where they can access our digital platforms, and that's in coordination with the camp managers and the local authorities. However, it's not always a success. Sometimes we decide that it's too risky for our staff to launch digital platforms when the government does not feel comfortable with with us having a direct channel of communication with the refugees. So it's a matter of, just like any other access issues, it's a matter of negotiation and doing a risk assessment and cost-benefit analysis, basically.
Thank you. And Giselle, so one question for you. So how do you manage international payment issues? And is there a risk that refugees who work digitally will face repercussions?
Sure. So managing the international payments, this is also another reason we went the B2B route. It's a lot easier to pay an organization than it is to navigate payments for every individual, every freelancer that we can access. We can force multiply our reach by working with organizations that have those hyper-local connections. They know on the ground what payment solutions work. They know which team members have access to a bank account and who doesn't, and they know what alternatives exist. And they also understand the regulatory environment at a local level much more than we can, because we're operating at a global level. And so the way that we navigate this is we're not only trying to make it easier and lower the barriers to entry for displaced talent, but also for businesses to send work and pay these populations. It's perceived still as a really high-risk thing if you say, hey, we have refugee freelancers in a refugee camp in East Africa, Kakuma or Dadaab. That is just a new thing, and new things could be perceived as a risk for businesses. And so we make that a lot easier. We're a UK-based entity, so US, UK, or EU companies, and we're even starting to get global companies from around the world beyond those regions can basically pay us directly, and then we can work with the organization and figure out the best way to ensure that we can pay that organization fairly and legally, and that they are setting the same standards to fairly and legally pay each of the individuals. And then we're following up with surveys to make sure that that money that the organization says they're paying is truly making it to the end user. So I would also say on what I've seen in the past is the reality of, if there isn't that intermediary that is finding a way to make it easy for businesses to pay freelancers and those trying to enter the digital economy, businesses just won't engage. So 5 years ago, I did a pilot where I was trying to work with a team of freelancers based in Palestine. They did a transcription project for me, and they said, great, the only way we can pay, PayPal is blocklisted in our for us. So what we can do is we can set up an Airbnb account, and you can book a stay for the amount of the project that you paid. And like, maybe that's how we can get paid. And no business with any sort of, accounting or legal regulations that they're abiding by, especially not an enterprise, is going to go through some backwater channels like that. So it's really about lowering the barriers to access. And we're doing that in that B2B structure.
Thank you so much, Giselle. So we have a lot of questions in the chat, and so unfortunately it's already 5 to 2. So I think what we can do is first we can copy all those questions and then send it to you all. And then if you do have more questions, you can also read the article and download the FMR issue, and then you can write directly to the author. So I think I'm going to thank Giselle, Gonzales, Saqib, Sheikh, and Amir, Shiva for your insightful and critical interventions today. As I said, I will invite everyone to download the FMR issue on digital disruptions and forced displacement. So not only you will learn more about these 3 great initiatives discussed today, but then you will also learn about other ones. And this issue does, I think, a great job in showcasing the often ambivalent nature of technology and the importance of context and nuance in understanding the implications for forcibly displaced persons. So Emily?
Thank you so much, Marie, and to all of our panelists and to our audience. So many great questions. I tried to bring together a few of them, but I hope that you'll take the chance to email the authors and follow up, because this kind of discussion is exactly what Forced Migration Review was designed to spark. I'm delighted now to pass the mic to our deputy editor, Catherine Meredith, who will close out our session with a few more points of information.
Thanks, Emily and Marie, and thank you to everybody for your wonderful contributions today. It's been a really rewarding working on this issue, and it's just so wonderful to have you all speaking together. We hope this issue of FMR will continue to spark discussions among practitioners, researchers, decision makers beyond this room, with the ultimate aim that it will contribute to improving outcomes for forcibly displaced people. So we encourage you to read the full issue if you haven't already, and please share it with your networks and keep in touch with us so that we can let you know about future events, future issues, and calls for proposals. You can do that by signing up for email alerts on our website. You can also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Blue Sky.